On today's episode, I talked to Christine, who owns Morton Marketing 417. She talks about her inspiring story on how she got to where she is today. We also talk about topics like imposter syndrome, what to do when you feel lost in life, advice for making career changes from what you thought was your dream job, moving away from your hometown, benefits of business coaching, managing self doubt, and other topics like that. Honestly, we could have probably broke this episode down into multiple topics, but we cover a little bit of everything. So this is a really good episode to listen to, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, I'm Tiffany, and welcome to the Tanowski Talks podcast, where we're going to be talking about motivation, inspirational stories, mindset shifts for success, branding, marketing, and general business topics to help you on your journey as a current or aspiring entrepreneur or business professional. So thank you so much for doing this today. And I wanted to start out with you just telling everyone who you are, what you do, who you serve, and do you only serve local clients or nationwide? So just about you and what you do.
Yeah. So I'm Christine Morton. I run Morton Marketing 417. We are an organic social media marketing agency. So our marketing agency specifically only does social media. So that's literally our bread and butter. It's what we specialize in. And I think it's really important to specialize in because it's so important today with the world. We're in the digital word of mouth era, and being specialized in social media, keeping up with those trends, understanding the algorithm, how it works is really important. So that's the only reason why we specialize in social media marketing. So we help businesses both local and nationally. And what we're really good at is storytelling. We love bringing out the brand values, really positioning them as the leaders, the experts in what they do, but also allowing their staff as well as the owners to shine, bringing some entertainment, telling their story, really so that people can get to know them. Because at the end of the day, people buy from people, and we want to make sure that that's the forefront of each social media strategy that we put out there.
Yes, love that. And then who do you serve? Who's your target audience?
Yeah, so, for a long time, actually when I started my business, I focused specifically on mental health because I am a mental health advocate. However, I decided to broaden, and we actually help all businesses of all levels. We have, I have really built out an agency that can help business owners at whatever level that they are of their entrepreneurial journey. And to be really honest with you, I don't like to just pick one specific target market. So meaning just mental health professionals or just home improvement. I am an ex-teacher, an ex-journalist, so I am a lover of learning. So my team as well has worked with many different industries. So we take on anyone that truly is ready to take their social media to the next level, trust that process, and want to have a hand in that process and communicate and collaborate with my team.
Yes, love that. And so a big reason that I wanted you to come on the podcast is because I saw your post kind of just briefly posting about your story, and I thought that was so inspiring. And I even sent you that screen, I literally screenshotted your post and I was like, okay, I really want her to talk about this on my future, at the time, non-existent podcast.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to just start when you were in Philadelphia, and what were you doing in life? How were you feeling in life at that time? And what made you pack up your car and come to Missouri? What
There's been so many stepping stones.
So what was going on there?
Yeah. So, I have always been a lover of communication. In high school, I was part of the radio team. We had a radio channel in high school. I was also part of the TV crew in high school. I was known as the weather girl. I would give the weather. So I loved anything communication. So it was natural when I was a senior to want to study communications. However, when I graduated high school, it was 2010, and the economy just was not great. And I went to a seminar at the university I was attending, and basically the word was that job opportunities in the communication field just weren't great, because when things happen in the world or economy and things like that, some of the first jobs to go are marketing, things like that. And so I was like, well, I think I'm going to change my major. And I've always been a lover of coaching and teaching, so I decided that I was going to become a teacher. And I also grew up in a household where everyone had a very secure job. So my mom was a Philadelphia police officer, my dad was a Philadelphia firefighter, and then my sister studied nursing. So I went into teaching, and it was great. It was a wonderful experience. I'm also someone who loves a challenge. So I am not a native language speaker, but I decided to study Spanish. So my degree is in Spanish secondary education, also English. So I could teach English or Spanish for private schools. And that's what I ended up doing. And I loved it. I went to Spain. I studied abroad in Spain. And then after I graduated from college, I actually went back for a month on my own and studied in southern Spain. And it was just such an incredible experience. And I used all of that knowledge to take into my classroom. And then because I'm a lover of learning, like I said, I actually ended up spending a summer at Middlebury College, the #1 college for languages in America, and did their intensive where you can only speak Spanish for like 7 weeks. Like, you will get in trouble if they hear you speaking English and kick you out of the program. Like, it's very intense. But it was such an incredible experience. And that honestly is where I learned a lot, and it took my Spanish skills to the next level because it literally forced you to speak the language, read the language, everything. Even if you went to lunch, you went to the bathroom, whatever it was, there was Spanish, there was, people were talking your language. And it was great. My 3rd year of teaching, though, I could feel in the pit of my stomach that it just was not what I was meant to do for the rest of my life. And I'll be really honest with you, I also didn't think that I could live off the salary that I was making. And, Philadelphia has a high cost of living, and unfortunately, it's hard to be a teacher. And I ended up working a second job. I was tutoring, I was doing all of these things, and I just was like, I really miss communication. Like, I love video. Like, gosh, growing up, my nickname was like Selfie Queen because I love to take selfies. And I just decided, and honestly, I decided this because I would sneak. So I was working at a private Catholic academy, and I would sneak to the chapel. And I was reading a book at this time. It was called Jen Sincero, You Are a Badass.
Yeah.
And I loved that book, and I would sneak to the chapel and I would read it on my off time. And it was teaching me to like really go after what I wanted. So I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna play around with the idea. Like, what if I got my master's in communication? So I applied to Villanova because it was close to home. I got in, I started the program, and I just realized that the communication they were teaching, which was more theory, was just not for me. I am someone who needs to hands-on learning, and I also wanted to do like journalism and writing, and that was more interesting to me. So I started looking up journalism schools, and to be really honest with you, I got this wild hair, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna apply to Syracuse. So like Syracuse, Mizzou, and there's a few other schools are really the top journalism schools in America, and it's hard to get into, it's expensive, it's a whole thing. And I was like, you know what? Doesn't hurt to try. Why not? I don't think they're gonna pick a little 25-year-old teacher from Philadelphia, but why not? And I didn't tell anyone, I just did it. I think I told the guy that I was dating at the time, and I think I told my sister. And I got the email that I got in. Like, I'll never forget that moment. And I was like, oh my God, I got in. Like, they took a chance on me. Like, oh my God, like, I have to do this. And I just remember being like, oh my God, I'm petrified to tell my parents because I did not think it was gonna go over well. And I remember one of the first people I told was my sister, and she was like really excited for me. And then I walked upstairs because I was sitting in the basement when I got the email, and I was like, so I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna move to New York and I'm gonna study journalism. And I just remember my parents being like, what? Like, what? Like, there was like, and there was a lot of back and forth that rest of the whole school year, because I think it was in the fall or the winter time that I got that email, I can't remember. And it was hard because I was like, wow, am I really gonna give up teaching? Because the school I was working at was a private academy, and you got a pension. Like, there was a lot of benefits if you stayed there. And then when you go into journalism, there's like no security. It's like all up in the air. You're gonna have to move around the country, do all these different things. But I decided, you know what, I would just go to the summer, because you start it in July, and I'll just see if I like the radio class. Well, with anything I do in life, if you give me a taste of it, I'm gonna absolutely love it most of the time. So I ended up loving it. I quit, and I moved to New York all on my own. No one helped me. I packed up my little, it was actually an SUV at the time. It was a Nissan Rogue. Moved up there, didn't know a damn soul. And I will tell you, if you've ever been to Syracuse, New York, it snows from like October to May. It was horrific. There's no sun because of the lake effect snow. But I loved it. When I think of a time in my life that I wish I could redo, it's Syracuse University. It was absolutely incredible. I was literally every day living and breathing journalism, which is my passion. Like, I love it. And I actually ended up getting one semester a full ride to go study for 2 weeks in Israel. So it took me to the Gaza Strip. So I went to the north, the Israel and Syrian border, the Lebanon, and like I went there, reported, did all this stuff, and it was so cool. And then we get to end our program in Washington, D.C., reporting on Capitol Hill. And I made airtime for politics for Salt Lake City in Utah. So it was just like incredible. I loved it. And then I found myself here at KY3. I got recruited from Gray Media, who owns KY3. And I was like actually living this dream that I had wanted my whole life. And it was great. You know, telling the stories of the Ozarks was an honor. You know, I met so many incredible people chasing tornadoes. Like, you do the murders, but then you also have the really fun stories. So like my time at KY3, most of it was actually during COVID. So I got to tell the stories of COVID and how people really took I feel like the terrible time during COVID, but tried to make it positive. I told so many stories that way, which was really cool. Like, there was a church, I can't remember, maybe it was Mount Vernon, but they used to meet out in the parking lot and you could hear the church through the radio in the car. And I got to tell that story and it was just so incredible. However, with all journalism, there's no pay. There's actually worse pay than teacher. And I wish somebody would have told me that, you know, that was never brought up to me.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, it's worse pay than as a teacher. And, you know, I had finally got my dream job, but I was so burnt out because I wasn't making, I really feel like, a livable wage. I was working all the time, you know, and because I had worked the night shift and there was just so much pressure, and I was my own cameraman. So I wrote the stories and was my own cameraman. And it was every day, it was a grind, and it really is. So anybody who's doing it today, like, props to you because it's so hard. It really is. And I ended up with an eating disorder, and I gained 80 pounds, and it was so hard. And, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror and not knowing who that person is anymore, but you're doing a job that you've dreamt of your whole life. Like, when I left KY3 and being so burnt out, leaving that was so hard. I feel like my identity was KY3 and my identity was being a news reporter, and I had literally left everything at home, like packed up my little Nissan Rogue, moved myself out to Missouri all on my own. Like, my parents finally came out 5 years later after I moved here. Like, no one had visited me and not being paid a lot. And it was just like, okay, I have to choose something else. I have to choose myself because right now we're going down a really slippery slope. And you know, I'll be totally honest with you, like, I became suicidal. I tried to commit suicide, and it was a lot. It was really hard. And, you know, when you don't get paid a lot, you don't really have good access to mental health care either, which was tough. And, you know, I thank one of my friends who, you know, actually stepped in and kind of saved me in a way. And I also met my significant other, and he saved me in many ways. And he's, you know, still my rock today and someone that I truly love and look up to. And he truly inspires me to be a better person. And then I went on to work in journalism, but just in a different way. I went and worked at the Springfield Business Journal, which was awesome. When I think of like really good journalism, like the journalism I learned at Syracuse, that's good journalism. Like, that team is kick-ass. However, it was short-lived. I can't sit at a desk for 8 hours. It is not my personality to sit there. I just can't do it. And after that 3 months, I was like, hey, I love this team. I love the work you do. I will still support you, but I need to get out. So I left, and I started working for the county. But I'll be really honest with you. Once again, I'm not meant for a desk job. And my office had no windows.
God.
And it was long days, and I'd be given a project, and they'd be like, okay, so this should occupy you for a month. And I'd be like, great, I did it in 24 hours. Like, because when you're a journalist, like, everything is so fast, you just learn to do everything so quickly. Mm-hmm. And my mental health just was trash by this point. Like, I had legitimately hit rock bottom and I got fired. And when I think of that day was probably one of the worst days of my life, but I didn't know at that time that it was going to be the best day of my life at the same time, because it really forced me to start my own business. So I remember that day like it was yesterday, and I remember being walked out, and that shame that you feel when you're walked out, when you're fired, it's just unbelievable. And I was like, what the F happened? Like, I was on top of the world, like pursuing my dreams, and here I am being walked out and fired. Like, debt, eating disorder, like it was insane. And I get home, and I was living with Keenan at the time, my significant other, and I just remember sitting on the floor crying, and I grabbed my dog, and I was like, how do I tell my parents? Like, how did we get here? And Keenan let me cry for a little bit, but if you've ever met Keenan, he is probably one of the most positive people. And he was like, he just literally handed me like a pad of paper and a pen, and he was like, here, let's just start brainstorming. What are we gonna do? What are your skills? Where could we apply? And then he also was like, you for months have been talking about how much you would love to earn your own business. Let's start one. Where can we start? And I decided, because I knew somebody that was doing what I do now, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna call her and see if we can talk about it. How do I get into it, blah, blah, blah. And then after, I think it was a month or two of starting my business, I signed up for my first marketing course, because I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know anything. I knew how to tell a story, but how to translate into running a business is like a totally different concept. And then it started taking off. And within I think it was after the first or second week, I had my first client at $4,200 a month, and I haven't looked back. And, and it all because I had people that I had met, business owner I'd met when I reported at KY3. And I just was like, who do I know that I could call and just be like, hey, I've gone into this. Do you need help? And that's like what I started doing. It was just like, tap into your network. I tapped into my network and figured it out. But I did continue to apply for jobs, because I was like, oh, this is not going to work. This is just like temporary. And then before you know it, we're a year later, and I'm like, okay, this is real. This is really real. And, it's just been building ever since. And super grateful, that I took that risk. I took that chance. And I feel like being a risk taker has always been part of me. I mean, I decided to move across the country myself, go in to get my master's at Syracuse. But no one prepares you for being a business owner. Like, everyone's always like, oh, it's great. And then you realize, like, I work 24/7. Oh my goodness, I'm so tired. But it's also super rewarding, because at the end of the day, you're working for you and you get to set the rules, which I feel like a big part of my life, I did not have good role models in a sense of work management. Yeah. So it's been a huge goal of mine, that now that I have a team, to be what I wish that I would have had when I worked at places. So that's just a little bit of my story. And I feel like I just talked for 900 hours, and I apologize.
No, I love that. And I wanted to ask, what were your thoughts? Are you someone who was nervous to move away from your home, stay in your home in general? Or were you just like, I got to do what I got to do? And did you not care where you ended up, or did you where did you get the courage, or were you just like, just got to do what I got to do?
I think it's a little bit of both. I remember packing up my car, and I don't think it really hit me until I was halfway through Pennsylvania, that I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back. Am I ever going to get a job in Philly? Because I will tell you, the goal at the time was, I want to be a Philadelphia news reporter. So the news in Philly is huge. It's really respected. My dream was to work at 6 ABC in Philadelphia. One of my role models growing up actually worked in the news in Philadelphia. She worked at the Channel 3 news station. But they're market 4. You have to be really good to be there. So that was my goal. And when I remember driving out there, it was exciting. Don't get me wrong, because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And, when KY3 flew me out to see the studio before I decided to sign with them. I remember the plane landing and I'm like, it is so green. Why is it so green? Oh my goodness, there's cows. Like it was so different because in Philadelphia, all you see is like skyscrapers and different things like that. It was so different. And, but I will tell you, a lot of it also was like, I just got this degree. I just spent so much money on this degree. I've got to go do it. I got to take a chance on myself. But it also was really hard because I didn't know when I was going to see my family. I also knew that I wasn't going to make a lot of money to be able to fly home a lot to Philly. But I'm really proud of that Christine today who decided to take a risk. And honestly, that's a really good question. Where does that courage come from?
Was it just like your passion driving you? Like your passion
Probably, yeah.
And did you have this sense of like feeling like, I'm meant for more than just like this place?
Yeah, and it's funny because have you ever looked at some of your old Facebook statuses and you're like, oh man, because so many of them, it's funny because when you get the memories on Facebook, they are from Christine and undergrad and, high school. And a lot of them are talking about like, I can't wait till I get out of Philadelphia. Like I can't they say that message, they're like, I'm meant for more. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely probably plays a role. I'm a huge lover of travel. I lived in Spain by myself twice, and yes, it was, briefly in a sense where it was only 5 months or a month, but I love new cultures. I love meeting new people, and actually that was probably one of the hardest things when I moved to Missouri was the lack of diversity, because I am someone who loves culture. I love learning about people, and in Springfield, unfortunately, it's just they don't have that, and thankfully we're growing now and we are getting more and more of that, but that was something that was really hard for me because in Philadelphia, being in a huge metropolitan area, diversity is huge. It's everywhere, which is awesome, and I'm a huge advocate for diversity. So that was probably one of the hardest things for me.
Yeah. That makes sense. I'm sure that, moving to Missouri.
Yeah. There was a lot of shockers. I actually, the very first weekend that I moved out here, I was actually at an Airbnb because my apartment, I couldn't move into my apartment for like a month later. And I was at this Airbnb and I went to Dunkin' Donuts because it's a staple in Philly. So Philly runs on Dunkin' as the slogan because they are like the biggest, I think Dunkin' supports the Eagles. They're one of their sponsors. Oh. And so I grew up on Dunkin', not Starbucks. And I was like, oh, there's a Dunkin' here, like, yay, some bit of home. And I go through the drive-thru, and this lady hands me my coffee, and she goes, I hope you have the best day. You deserve it. And I was like, because in Philly, you just don't hear that. Like, it's not like we're mean, but no one's going out of their way. Whereas here, everybody was so kind and welcoming that it was like, where am I? This is not Philly anymore. It was so different.
I bet.
Yeah.
What's some like advice you would give anyone who is, maybe they're going through different jobs that maybe they think is their passion, or maybe, okay, this is where I'm gonna, because like when you started teaching, like before you even became a teacher, did you think, okay, this is my life career, or did you never think that?
No, actually I did. I will not lie to you. That's why I went to Middlebury, after I graduated from LaSalle, which was my undergrad. I was constantly learning Spanish because I thought, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to get married. I'm going to live in Philly. I'll probably pop out some kids. And now it's like, I just want to be a career woman. I love my business. I want to grow my business. I want to be a keynote speaker. It's changed so drastically. But I also feel like the reason why it's changed so drastically is because I've been on this health and wellness journey where I've started to heal the trauma from my childhood and really honor little Christine and the woman that she actually is versus who society and everybody else wanted me to be. So when I finally discovered and started living my truth, it's when I finally realized what are my desires and then started living them.
Yeah. So what would also be your advice for anyone who, all they have seen is people working like a 9 to 5. They think they have to get into that structured job. They think that that's the only way. They think, well, this is just what I have to do. So what would you say to those people who do want to start their own business and like that's their passion, or they think that, this is, my passion. I really want to start my business, but this is the only role models I've seen is people who tell you have to go work a steady full-time job for somebody else.
Yeah. And, I want them to know that it's totally normal. That was me. When I told my parents after I got fired, well, I'm going to start my own business. I like deer in headlights. Like, what do you mean? We're changing careers again, Christine? Like, holy moly. However, I want people to know that when you do decide to take that leap and you say, you know what, I am going to start my own business. Even if I'm going to start something while I work a full-time job just to see if I can do it.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I want them to know that you will get so much pushback. And the pushback is everyone else's fears. Because they don't feel like they could do it themselves. And they're just putting that fear onto you. They're projecting it onto you. Exactly. And people will tell you every single day, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do this. It's really important that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to stay in your lane. Like, I remember I hired a business coach, my very first business coach, Peggy Ray James. She's fantastic. She's still on Instagram. And she was like, Christine, blinders on, focus. And like, that's what I did. And, I kept with that. And that's what would be my biggest advice is like, do not let the projections, the fears that are projected from others, which will happen. They still happen to me today, 3.5 years into it. Do not let them get to you because you can do it. And I'll be honest with you. I won't sugarcoat. I know we see on Instagram like, oh, start digital marketing. You'll be a millionaire in a week. Yeah. Like, it takes consistency and it takes hard work. You will work 24/7 when you first start. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are still days where I have late nights. I work 14, 16 hours and I have a full team, but that's just what comes with being a business owner. But there's also the beautiful side of being a business owner where you get to create the life that you want. There's a choice, and having that choice is scary because sometimes people, I feel like, even with myself, they're afraid of what will they do with that choice? Will they show up for their business? Because every day I have to tell myself when I wake up, I work for me now. My choice is I'm going to market for my business. I'm going to prospect. I'm going to check in with my team. Like, I have this agenda that I do, and people have to create that structure for themselves, which can be extremely difficult, but it's extremely necessary.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about this a little bit before, and I don't know if you want to talk about it now or not. Yeah. But about kind of like the imposter syndrome and the doubt and like, I know this varies person to person, but like sometimes like waking up thinking it's just all gonna fail. It's all gonna go away. Your clients are,
poof, gone.
They're not gonna renew. Then no one else is gonna book me.
Yep.
Or, what are some things that you kind of feel in that area, and how do you make yourself snap out of it and kind of like, reassure yourself? Or can you reassure yourself? Do you actually ever snap out of it? Because I know sometimes it's a constant feeling for people.
Yeah, that's a really great question. As someone who has struggled with their mental health, imposter syndrome is so real for me. A lot of people, when they see me, they're like, oh, Christine, you're a powerhouse. Like, you do this, you do that. And I'm like, gosh, if you spent even 10 minutes inside my brain most days, you'd be like, whoa. Because there is a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of fear. I've just learned that I'm going to take action, even if it's messy action, even if I am afraid. Because I am afraid, I actually told this to a client. I have an omnipresence marketing strategy in a sense where I do networking, I do speaking events, I'm on social media, I have an email list, like I do all these things, and there are still times where no one's booking a call and I go, the world's ending. It's never gonna work out. Why isn't it working? And then like I sit there and I spew and I even say it to my significant other and Keenan's like, okay, we gotta regroup. And I will not let you do that now, 3.5 years later. if there's one thing that I learned at the beginning of business, of being an entrepreneur, is that everyone's always like, you need a strategy, you need a strategy, you need a strategy. Mindset is just as important as a strategy, as a marketing plan, as a business plan, 100%. And I'm still working on that. That's why it's so important for me to invest. I've invested in a confident coach. I invest in regular therapy. I've seen a functional medicine doctor, because I believe investing in those resources and those tools make me a better business owner. Because if my mental health is not right, if I don't feel good, then I can't show up for my team. I can't show up for my clients. So it is a priority to me to feel good. And that's why getting the eating disorder has been a huge task to undertake. And I've just lost 55 pounds the healthy way by like finally regaining control of that binge eating disorder. Yeah. Because when I was full blown in my eating disorder, I would get off at like 10:30, 11 from KY3, go straight to Walmart. I'd eat an entire sheet cake, an entire pizza, and a carton of ice cream every single night. Wow. Every night. Because it was the only thing that I felt like would fill the hole that was inside of me, because I just felt so burnout and tired, and just to be really honest with you, not respected as a human. And it was so hard. But imposter syndrome is real, and I want people to know that it's normal. That if you feel like things are crumbling, it's okay. But if there's also one thing that I've learned, is that the more consistent that I am, and I work hard, and I'm a good person. Like, I'm a good person to my team, I'm a good person to myself and to my family, then good things happen to good people. And I'm a huge believer in that. Now, are there days where I'm like, because I'm someone who's also extremely spiritual, I look up at the universe and I'm like, y'all got jokes. Like, seriously, help a girl out, because I really need help today. And I talk to my spirit guides. I'm like, hey guys, I'm gonna need some help this week, because we're not feeling too hot. But it is normal. But it is really important to invest in your mental health, in your self-care. So I'll tell you, we're about to go on vacation, and I have been feeling this massive guilt because I'm taking 11 days off, where I'm literally going to delete my work apps from my phone so I don't feel inclined to check, because I'm someone that, even though I have a team that runs everything, I still like to be like, what's going on today? And like check in and like whatever. But so we have an operations manager who's a business manager, and I hired her, I think it was like February, March. And I realized this weekend, when I was feeling that massive guilt, that this is exactly what I've been working toward. To have a team, to have an operations manager, and have this like kick-ass workflow where it doesn't require me, is exactly what I've been working towards. So why do I feel guilty that I'm gonna take 11 days off? And that's why I asked for the community's perspective, and I made a Facebook post on it, because I also feel like it's important to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Like, vulnerable is not a weakness, it's a strength. And even though I'm 3.5 years in, and that might be more experience than someone 1 year in business, I have a long way to go. I am a baby business owner, and I know that. And I want to have those community discussions of like, hey, I'm feeling this way. Do you have any feedback? Because I'm sure there's other business owners that feel the same way, or feel like they can never take a day off. Yeah. And that's how I am. And because I'm someone who loves to work, I'm passionate about what I do. And then I have to remind myself, and honestly, other people did this past week that were like, honoring yourself and taking time for yourself, like, it's actually a win for your clients, because they're gonna get a better Christine who's recharged, is more creative. And they're right, because when I do create that white space for myself, I do feel better. Mm-hmm. And plus, like, I love traveling, so I get to actually do one of my hobbies, which is what I'm really looking forward to. And it just, put everything into perspective. And now I'm like really excited, and I'm like, see you clients, bye. Yeah. Versus last week, I was feeling really this massive guilt of leaving everyone, but I know they're in good hands. I wouldn't have built this team and have this incredible team if I didn't trust them, and that's what they're there for. Yeah. But yeah, imposter syndrome, I still get it today. And it really comes down to remembering that you're human. Mm-hmm. Business owners, I feel like people look at us and they like have this expectation of us, but it's like, at the end of the day, we're people, we have heartbreak, we have things going on behind the scenes. Like we're human just like you, and we need the grace too.
Yeah. And I think also with imposter syndrome, it's easy to like look online and on social media
And
you
compare.
see, yes,
Yeah.
and you see like other businesses thriving, or
Yep.
and you honestly don't know if they're just keeping up this persona of thriving,
Oh, yeah.
and like they're really struggling behind the scenes, or if they truly are thriving. And I think that's something like important for like people to keep in mind too, is that because it's so easy to like fall into the trap, because like I do it too.
Yeah.
I see other people like online, I'm like why
Yeah.
why don't I
Yeah.
like why didn't I don't know,
Why didn't I get that? Or
yeah,
how does she get all those clients? Or how does he, how can he make videos like that? Like, of course,
Yeah.
like, I think that it's totally normal. I will be honest with you. One trick that I did learn from when I invested with a business coach was to not follow those people. And it's not because I don't want to support them. It's because I know my own mental health. I will literally absorb it, and then I will go down that path. So I try to support them in other ways, because I am a huge believer in community over competition, but I also need to protect my own space.
yeah, because like because there's somebody that I know and like for a while I would, when I was kind of like going through a struggle patch of like not getting a lot of like clients and stuff, or like my target audience, I guess, my target clients. And I just kind of had to take a break of like looking at their stuff. And like I felt bad about it, because I really like her.
Yeah.
And like, and she's not even like local to Springfield.
Yeah.
So, but still, it was like just somebody I follow, and I really like her. And, but I had to like take a break from it, because it was like making me feel really bad about myself.
Yeah, because
for
you're
a while.
consuming it, and then like your mind races, and that imposter syndrome comes out.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I do, myself is, I don't follow anyone that I know would be a trigger for me. And I don't do it because I'm jealous or I'm upset with that person. It's more that I need to protect my own mind so that I can be available for my team and my clients.
Yeah. And it may even be someone close to you that, even if they're not doing like the same profession, the same whatever, like if you're constantly being triggered by this person, like even if you don't want to like unfollow them, I think there's like mute buttons, or I don't know, there's like some ways around.
Yeah,
I think
there is for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's healthy to do, at least for like a period of time, till you can kind of come out of that and start seeing their stuff again if you want.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
Yeah, 100%. It comes down to that choice.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about was, because I think you've talked about this before, you thought, and a lot of people think this, and like I'm one of these people too, that I struggle with like thinking I need to do all the things, thinking I need to keep control of every single little aspect. And I think I've heard you talk about this before, like how I think you said you kind of like struggled like even hiring that first person to like delegate things to. So kind of talk about how you like started to realize that, oh my gosh, I need help.
Yeah. And that was really hard, because I will be honest with you, based on my childhood trauma and what I've learned in therapy, having complete control is my safety mechanism for myself. It makes me feel safe. Whereas when there's many, hands in the fire and there's other people, I'm like, I want to be like, wait, we could do it this way. And then it's just like, and I will tell you, it's still something that I'm learning today. I will start with that. However, gosh, if you would ask my operations manager when we first started working together, there was many times where she was like, Christine, get out of the systems, walk away. And she was so right.
That's a great person to have then.
She's incredible. Yeah. If you don't, her name is Casey Ranger with Purposeful Systems.
Is she local or?
So she's in Idaho.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she's fantastic at what she does. She has built out all of our systems. So I have custom made systems for our agency that she built out, and now she operates them and does the team management. Yeah, and she's absolutely incredible. And I'm just so grateful that she stuck it through with me, because it was tough at first, because I am someone who loves that control, but then I had to realize that like Casey's got it. Elena and Jen, who are also, they're my subcontractors, but they're account managers. So I don't have any full-time employees right now, but they all, you know, I subcontract them, and they're just incredible. And it was really hard at first. Many nights where I stared at the ceiling and was like, we could do this, we could do this. And then to be really honest with you, there was a moment where one of my subcontractors was like, I'm gonna either need you to trust me or I can't do this. And they came to me and they were super vulnerable and super kind about it when they came to me. And it was like that moment where I was like, wow, I have turned into the manager that I don't want to be, that I have been actively trying not to be, and I don't want to be a micromanager. And it was like at that moment where things shifted for me. And it's, you know, still a learning process, and there are still moments where I catch myself and I'm like, nope, it's gonna be okay. And, you know, one thing I've learned from my team is marketing is not an emergency. It's not an emergency, Christine. And because I'm a perfectionist too, so I'm like, oh, it's got to be this way. But I have learned that marketing is not an emergency. Everyone is just as qualified as I am, and they are absolutely correct. You know, there are still learning lessons. There are still conversations I have to have with my team. However, I have learned that instead of coming at it from a viewpoint of like, you need to do this, I have learned through therapy that to be like, hey, can you help me understand why we did it this way? And a lot of times when I do it that way and they explain it, I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. Duh. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, okay, cool. No problem. And coming at it from a viewpoint of curiosity versus like kind of like a dictatorship almost of like demanding and being angry. But I'm just super grateful for my team. Yeah, I honestly don't know what I would do without them. I mean, the fact that they're going to be just doing everything while I get to go and be in Mexico for 11 days, like it's just, I'm super grateful. But it's really hard. It really is. And I'm still going to learn. And there are still going to be moments where I'm sure there are setbacks. But I believe that anything in life, especially business, that you can always learn something. And that's probably something that I'll continue to learn.
Yeah.
As we grow.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what is some advice that you would give someone who feels like lost or like stuck in life? Kind of going back to what we were kind of talking about in the beginning.
Yeah. One would say that I totally understand and I can empathize with that person because I felt like for a long time I felt lost. And there are days sometimes where I still feel lost. Like, where do I want to go in my business? Where, you know, what's that next level look like? What do I need to invest in, or what do I need to do or change? I think it's normal sometimes to feel stuck or to feel lost. That just is I feel like your soul telling you that you're ready for the next adventure. You know, I felt stuck and I felt lost when I was a teacher, and I'm like, do I make that leap? Do I make that jump? But I think it's really important that if you feel that way, to lean into that feeling. Don't continue to sit there and go, I'm stuck. Be like, why? Explore it. Start asking yourself those tough questions. You know, even invest in, you know, a therapy session, asking a therapist, you know, or your best friend, someone who's going to give you that non-judgmental, you know, or give it to you straight. Like, I'm someone who loves direct communication, because then if you're direct with me, I feel like we don't do this dance and then I got to figure out how you feel. Yeah. And it doesn't help me make a decision if I'm feeling lost or stuck. But I think it's healthy to explore it. And then I also encourage people that when they figure out that, hey, I feel stuck for this reason, have the courage to sit with it, even journal about it, and then what are your possible solutions to getting out of that? And then whatever the possible solution is, pick the craziest one. Take the riskiest one, because I have found that the riskier the option that I take, the better the reward. Yeah. Because sometimes the most crazy idea that I have, as long as it's not hurting me or someone else, and it's a great idea in a sense that it's going to positively impact someone else's life or my own, I go for it, because I know that the reward, like I said, is going to be tenfold because I've then honored myself.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes like the safe option may be also the easiest.
Oh, yeah.
And like, you may go down that path and be like, okay, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And then like later in life, maybe start just wishing, like obviously can't go back in time, but like wishing, you know, I could have started to do this or this or this, you know, like 5 years ago, I could have done this. And like,
And then before you know it, you're sitting in the nursing home and you're like, well, I could have 50 years ago.
yeah, I think about this all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I think about like getting old and being just like an old person. Like, I don't want to have like regrets in life, especially like career type regrets, because like that takes up like,
God, it's like half your life.
Yes,
100%. You spend half your life at work or doing it. Absolutely.
yeah. So it's like, I want to make sure I'm doing something, obviously, that I can make a living doing, because I mean, obviously I need money,
100%.
but like something that I'm also going to enjoy and not hate waking up every day. So I think, I mean, whether that is owning your own business or working for, you know, whatever.
And it doesn't have to be like, if you don't want to be an entrepreneur and you still want to work for someone else, I want people to know that's okay. I feel like right now we're in this trend where like everyone's like, you should want to be an entrepreneur, and it's like, it's okay if you're not. Just make sure that you work for a company that you believe in, you work for people that value you. That would be my biggest advice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do the final 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, looking back on your journey so far, what is one piece of advice you wish you could give your younger self when you were just starting out as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. And I know we may have briefly touched on this. However, it's really understanding that business is not all strategy. That mindset plays a huge role. Taking care of yourself it's paramount, to be really honest with you, because you can't create a kick-ass strategy for your business. You can't create this awesome marketing and business plan that's going to get you to the next level to make that money and to make that positive impact if you don't feel good. And I really highly recommend taking care of yourself, you know, finding time for yourself, which is hard, right? You could be a mom, you have kids, you have a family, you've got a business. Like, there's so much going on. But at the end of the day, even if it's one thing a day, whether that's, you know, making your favorite coffee, or, you know, reading even just a few pages of your favorite book, or just sitting down just to pet your cat, whatever it is, just finding a little bit of time to honor yourself each day, I feel like is extremely important, so that you don't lose sight of the why of what you're doing.
And I feel like also doing like things for yourself can help with not leading to burnout.
100%. Yeah, because it really is true. Like,
just like getting away for a vacation and like unplugging from your business. Like, I think that's so important.
Yeah, it really is. And realizing that going on those vacations, or, you know, even if it's a staycation, even if it's just a mini getaway where you don't look at your email for 24 hours, you know, that is huge, because your mind, the body keeps the score. So the body is going to hold all of that stress. It's going to hold all of that sleepless nights, all of it. You have to find ways to release it, or it's going to catch up, and it will manifest itself, and it will eventually blow up into that burnout. And if there is a way that you can prevent that and love the journey, which, don't get me wrong, is really hard. It is so hard to love that journey, because everyone, you know, sometimes they're like, oh, the journey. And I'm like, the journey that's like this all the time. But it's really important to find and give yourself grace along the way.
Yeah. Question number 2 is, what role do you believe self-care, which we kind of talked about this, what role do you believe self-care plays in sustaining your energy and motivation as an entrepreneur, and what practices do you prioritize in your routine?
Yeah, so a common theme, obviously self-care is very important to me. So when I was battling that eating disorder, I knew I needed to get it under control, but in the healthy way. So I personally, what's part of my routine is therapy. I love reading personal development books. I love it. I invest in personal training because 2 times a week. It's really huge for me. I love it. And I'm not a cardio person. I love lifting weights. I love feeling strong. That to me feels sexy versus being like 120 pounds, no muscle. Like I'd rather have some meat on me. And then what's actually free and one of my favorite things that I do every single day with my significant other, depending on weather, is we go for a 2.5 mile walk every night. And I love it. Now this is going to sound creepy, but we walk through a cemetery. There is nothing more peaceful than a cemetery. Everyone's dead. There's nobody talking. And that's not to be rude. I don't want to be rude to anyone, but there's nobody talking to me. It's so quiet, it's so peaceful. And then the storyteller comes out in me because I think to myself, I read the tombstones, I look at the names and I think to myself, who was that person? And then I allow my imagination to go wild. Like, oh, Mary Sue, like she worked in a, in a boutique and she sold, and I allow myself to play. Not in a weird way and not in a, I don't want to ever offend anyone. That's not what I'm doing. It's more just like allowing myself to put the phone down because I have to, because we're walking and, it's quiet. We, last night we saw deer, which was fun. And then we always, whenever we go past this certain part in the cemetery, there's always bunnies. So me and Keenan will say to ourselves, are we going to see the buns tonight? And it's just something I really look forward to. Because it's something active, it gets me away from my desk. But then I'm also a lover of nature because I feel like the more that I can sit in nature and relax and hear the sounds, it's a lot different than when I grew up because you hear buses, sirens all the time. So when I imagine, it's funny because growing up I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to live in this penthouse. I'm going to be so bougie. And now my goal would be to have a home with some land and it's just peaceful. Because I truly believe being out in nature and listening to the frogs and the cicadas and all of that, there's a level of peace it brings me. Now, if that's not for someone else and they prefer to go cycling every night or whatever it is, but those walks have truly transformed the relationship with myself, and then it allows me to also be with my significant other.
Yeah. Yes. I love taking walks. I wish that me and my husband took more walks together. The third and final question is, can you discuss a time when you had to step outside of your comfort zone to pursue a new opportunity or challenge and how it contributed to your personal and professional growth?
Yeah. So, it's close to this time last year. I had my eyes set on working with this business coach. But it was going to be extremely expensive. It was going to be $15,000. Yeah. And I just was like, that's funny. And I didn't know how I was going to pay, because at that time I didn't have a team, so it was just me. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay that retainer, pay my bills, and all that stuff. And it was really hard. But I just remember saying to myself, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to find that money. I'm going to find it. And, I remember sending the deposit. So you had to pay a $1,000 deposit to hold your spot to start a certain month. And I just was I remember sending the money, and there was many nightly conversations with Keenan, and Keenan was always like, you can do it. You can do it. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. Because I didn't want to take out a loan. Mm-hmm. I'm I don't want to take out a loan. I also was only a year and a half or maybe not, almost 2 years into my business, and you can't get a loan. There was whatever. So I ended up being okay, I'm going to get a credit card. So I got a business credit card, but I'm going to pay it off every month because I do not want interest. Yeah. But thankfully the credit card came with I think it was 12 months no interest or whatever. So some of the months while I was doing it, if I needed to, I didn't have to pay it off. But preparing for that was huge because I think the monthly payments were $2,300. Yeah. And I was not making a lot in my business. And we were making enough where it was more than I'd ever made, but to pay $2,300 on top of paying my own self. Yeah. And all of that and having a business where you're not guaranteed income, it was I remember telling my parents, and then my mom was like, you're fucking crazy. And so I did it, and I shit you not, I paid that deposit and I started working with it. And then just more revenue started coming in. I started signing more clients. It was like the universe was like, oh, so you think you're worth more? Great, I'm going to give you more.
Yeah.
And, you know, it ended up working out, and I was able to pay off the credit card and do all this stuff. And it was a huge risk because I just remember being petrified to sign up for that, because $15,000, like, my car was like, I think $20,000, and I was paying payments on it. And I was expected to pay $15,000 in 6 months. And I didn't have that in the bank.
Yeah.
And, you know, I paid it when I was done paying the 6 months. I was so proud of myself because you know, it was one of the best programs I ever did. I learned so much from that business coach. And then it also set me up for success. It took my business to the next level because it forced me to try all these new marketing strategies. And I got to the next level by investing in this money, and then also a confidence. Because it was like, if I want something, if I set my mind to it, I can do it.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest thing that I've ever done, that I'm like, I still think to myself, like, I'm really proud of myself for doing that. Because I don't know many people who would feel comfortable just giving out $15,000 in 6 months like that, because it was a huge risk.
Yeah. And I agree. And I don't remember, I reached out to a couple people before I signed up with my business coach.
Yeah.
And our mastermind coaching just ended, which is sad, but because it was a 6-month one too.
Yeah.
And I reached out to somebody who I had seen like post about business coaching before. I feel like you may have been one of them that I asked about, like, was that worth it to you?
Yeah.
Like, investing and everything like that. And my coaching, I think, was $6,000-$7,000.
Yeah.
So like not as much as yours, but that's still like a huge investment
Heck
for
yeah.
me. And so I was like really nervous about it. But because I'm also a person, I like question myself. I question, like, you know,
Can I do this? Like, yeah.
And sometimes I will regret big purchases, and
wow,
I will
okay.
like beat myself up over like, I don't really make purchases that are that large, but
Sure.
even like a few $100s, like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'll
I bought
beat
a pair of sunglasses, and I was like, should I have bought these? They were
Yeah.
$100. Like, maybe I should take them back. And Keaton
Yes.
was like, stop it.
Yes, that's like
Yeah.
exactly what
Yep.
I do. And so, but when I signed up for that business coach, I mean, immediately, like, I knew, like, there was no doubt in my mind, like, this is like the person
Yep.
for me, this, like the business coach for me.
Yep.
This was, you know, I had zero regrets that whole 6 months.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just kind of unlike me sometimes. And the coaching made such a difference in my mindset.
It's a game changer.
Business, and like, obviously you have to put in the work. Like, you know, signing up for
Oh,
coaching
yeah.
isn't just like this magic button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people think it is.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, if I'm paying this much money, it should be a magic bullet. And it's like, no marketing.
Yeah.
Nothing that you do is a magic bullet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I highly recommend coaching. And yeah, good ones are not cheap. Like, good, really, truly transformative
Yep.
business coaches. Yeah, they're not going to be cheap.
No.
But if you're truly open to new ideas, new mind, like, because she really focused on mindset stuff too.
Yeah.
Which, because I didn't really know what to expect, like, going in.
Sure.
But she really focuses on mindset, and that was just like so helpful.
Yeah.
And she's the one who like really started encouraging me to like talk on my stories.
Oh, good.
And like and stuff, which I thought like I can't do that.
Everybody hates the stories.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, you are not alone. Every business owner I
Yeah.
work with hates the stories.
Yeah, I know.
But
And
it's where you make your money.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important. And anyways, I highly recommend like business coaching
Yeah.
for anyone, especially if you're like lost and you kind of like don't know like what direction to do next. Like,
It's okay to ask for help.
yeah, and especially if it's a business coach that is doing like your specific industry.
Exactly. I highly recommend
Yes,
it. Yeah.
because mine wasn't like a general business coach. She was specific to brand photographers.
Oh, I love that.
And she is already like, you know, very successful and like. So
Well, her
anyways, yeah.
feedback is invaluable then, because she
Yeah.
has walked your walk. She's been in your
Yes.
shoes, and she can help you get to that next level, which is so huge. So
Yeah.
I am a huge supporter of, you know, business coaching. Obviously, you want to make sure it's the right person for you. You want to do your homework because,
Yeah.
you know, there are scams out there.
Yep.
But I do think that if you find the right person and like you said, it's in your industry, it can be super invaluable. You know, I am someone who is a big believer in investing for your business.
Yeah.
You know, that's why like a month or two after I started my business, I immediately invested in this marketing program because I needed to. Like I knew that if I was going to market my business, if I was going to learn social media marketing, I needed to. Like, yes, you can do the free videos, you can do all of that, but I also know my own learning style. So if that is someone's learning style where free things are good for you, awesome. I just wasn't that person. I needed more of a hands-on approach so that I could see, because that's just the type of learning style I am.
Yeah. And like, that's kind of like, I wanted someone who like specifically gave me feedback, like not because I had bought courses, just like general like courses
where you get no access to the person.
Yeah, you don't get access. I mean, obviously it's helpful, but like I really wanted someone to like work
hands-on with.
Yes.
Yep. So. I'm the same way. I need that too. I need like someone to either chat with or whatever. You know, I would love to one day where if we're a big agency where I can work one-on-one with coaches, but it's like the people I want to work with are like $45,000 and in 6 months, and I'm like, yeah, we're not there yet. And I don't know how much manifestation I can do to get 45,000, but we're just not there yet. So
Well, I am so happy that you agreed to do this. I feel like we need to do this again because I feel like there's so many other topics.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I would also love to do like one about, you know, maybe like something social media specific or marketing specific.
Help people for sure.
Yeah, something like that.
Absolutely. So, no, this is fun. Thank you so much for inviting me. And, you know, I thank you for allowing me to share my story, you know, for creating that safe space. And this has just been so fun. And, you know, I've known you for a bit, and I'm just so glad that we've connected. And,
I know,
you know, I've seen you start. I know you've been talking about this podcast, so I just want you to know that I'm proud of you for getting this and like rocking at it. You're just doing such a great job.
Thank you. If you're still here, thank you so much for listening. I'm Tiffany, and I am a personal branding photographer and videographer for women entrepreneurs. And I'm based in Missouri, but I do shoots nationwide. So thank you so much for listening to my podcast.